Morning, welcome to the Modscast. Hope everybody's doing well today. Thinking a lot about some of the things that I've talked about in previous videos and how they tie together. But in particular, I've been thinking about this media thing, the narrative piece we talked about before, how we are consumers, so we buy the narrative we want. Sticks, Hacks, and Hammer is another YouTuber. He's talked about the truth being a function of desire. We see what we want to see, regardless of the objective reality. That's human nature. And the Make America Great Again thing, what bothered me about that. There's a YouTube channel at the end. They'll play Trump going, "We will make America great again." Okay. As I've tried to establish in other videos, America isn't great because of politics, or politicians, I should say, or even politics for that matter. It's great because of its people, because of the spirit of people who decided that they wanted to be sovereigns in their own right, and that they could be mature enough to get along and create a functioning nation of individual sovereigns. That looks like chaos to most of the world, as I've talked about before. But more importantly, I guess I was listening to Hard Bastards broadcast yesterday. Again, for those of you that are interested, Hard News Network, the Hard Bastard channel. Very colorful language. He's a free speech guy to the hilt, and he can be crass and vulgar. That's part of who he is, but he takes apart media narrative and deception. He started on the left, moved to the right, but what got me thinking is he and a bunch of other guys who are alternative media people. What I think is most exciting about them is they're reminding us that this whole project is our duty. The reason America was great ever, as I said before, was because of improvement. And by that I mean the dedication to a project of perpetual improvement as a nation, but as a nation of individuals. So instead of looking to create the perfect state, we just look to create a better us. That's what we're supposed to be doing. That's what the American project is, that individuals will self-evaluate and improve themselves. To do that, they have to be willing to remove the blinders, as Sticks, Hacks, and Hammers pointed out, to remove the blinders and look at themselves and their faults and not see truth as a function of desire. It's easy, as a recovered alcoholic, to look and blame other people and situations for my problems, for our problems. That's the narrative we'd like. We'd like it to be someone else's fault. And that's normal, but that's usually not the case. And the other thing you learn in 12-step is, what can I control? What can't I control? The only thing you can control is yourself and your improvement. And how do you make yourself better in order to make the world better? Better as a parent, better as a sibling, better as a friend, better as whatever, better as a citizen. If you make yourself better, the world will become a better place. Do that by holding yourself accountable for things and being true, not to your idea of how everything should be, but to the notion that it's going to have to be reevaluated and improved. As I mentioned, America's great because it is made up of individuals who improve themselves, and we've failed at that, I guess, is the point I'm getting at in today's video. Our need to have narratives which fit our perception, our willingness to consume a product from the media that affirms our biases and echo chambers us and makes us feel good about ourselves, that's our fault. No politician's going to make America great again. America's great. It's always been great, but not because it's been perfect. America's done bad things, but America's, even as every individual has, as I've said before. But we're failing right now, and this is where alternative media becomes so important, because it's reminding us that this is a big responsibility, and we have to think critically. And these toys we have, these tools we have, and this from a guy who loves video games, we need them to be improving ourselves. We have an awesome responsibility as adults. And the conservative in me who again holds that we have a contract with future generations and with past generations to honor the gift we've been given and to pass it on. We don't have a right to do what we want with it because there's people coming after who are going to inherit it. So what we have is the duty to do what's best with it. And Heinlein's great on this in Starship Troopers, for those of you who've read it, where he talks about the distinction between rights and duties. We're so obsessed with rights, and I'll do a video later on this whole doing right, being right, and the whole question of rights. I'm a language guy, so I love linguistic coincidences. We're tending to forget that having the right to do something doesn't make it right. Our government determines what our rights are, but it does not determine what is right for us. We're supposed to figure that out, and the assumption is that we will be doing that constantly, and that we'll be more concerned with doing right than with what our rights are, or with being right. And we'll know whether or not it's right to do something. So, for example, you can have the right to demonstrate at the funeral of a soldier if you want, anti-war, but that doesn't make it right for you to do that. Yeah, that's an uncomfortable discussion to have, and I know that the person who tries to speak these uncomfortable truths is going to be unpopular. It's like a sponsor in 12-step. You don't like it, you hate it. But you need them. You do. And as I said before, in different situations, your friends, people who care about you, aren't the people who are going to blow sunshine up your ass all the time. They're the ones who are going to tell you when you're screwing up. The ones who are willing to risk your friendship to tell you when you're screwing up. And it's only when we're more obsessed with being right than we are with doing right that we get pissed when we're told that we're screwing up. I was fortunate enough to have friends and people around me who told me when I was screwing up. And I still seek those people out. And that's what makes America great. Individuals speaking up and saying this is wrong. They're not going to be popular. It's not easy. Well, it's simple, but it isn't easy. And, you know, we can get into discussions about morality and where does it come from and how do we know what constitutes right and wrong. My simple creed is, again, if you know, you know. If you're quiet and you listen and you think and you reflect and you consider, you know whether or not what you're doing is right. You might proceed to do the wrong thing anyway, but you usually know deep down inside it's wrong. And you have to fight the urge in yourself to make excuses for it. And we as a people, I think, have lost our way. And it's incumbent upon us, those of us who are willing to dig deeper, ask hard questions, and keep speaking up. For CNN to say, we reserve the right to release this guy's information if he does something else, okay. And granted, he had racist stuff on his jokes, on his Reddit feed, stuff like that. You have the right to be an asshole, to be a jerk. You have a right to be stupid. Doesn't make it right, and no amount of law is going to make it right. And the whole thing about doing right is you have to choose it. You can't be forced to do right. And that's where we've lost our way. So many of us believe that you can legislate and order people to do right. But that's wrong. To order someone to do right is wrong. You have to model it and hope that they'll choose it and show them that it's the right thing to do. Because it's good for everyone. And because it's the right thing to do. The reasons matter. They do. We all know this. If you're coerced when you're a kid and your parents say, oh, you know, hug your brother, make up. Oh, okay. Right? You don't really feel like it. It's not really there. You can't compel goodness. Goodness must be voluntary. It's the most essential nature. It's why socialism and redistributive plans and compelled sharing isn't sharing. It's theft. Smarter people than me have said this, but what you've done is strip it of its most essential nature, and that is that it's voluntary, that you've chosen to do it for the right reasons. This nation, look, we're going to be forced to look at truths by hard realities that we don't like if we don't choose to look at the unpleasant truths that we want to see. And that's what's happening throughout Europe and stuff. You're seeing people who constantly want, and they're not bad people. That's the thing. It's not bad people. It's human nature to see what you want to see. But we as a nation have failed in that regard. We failed in our educational system. Um, we failed in our consumer habits as media, and maybe it's the nature of affluence. And I want to point out that there are people who, well, it's too late. If this is modern presidential, then we're doomed. But I'm firmly convinced, a student of Tolkien and of history, of Alexander Pope and others, that there is no such thing as despair. Despair is the only enemy you have to worry about. I mean, the only thing to fear is fear itself. Okay, I agree. Fear makes us do bad things, I've talked about elsewhere. Fear and prudence can be good things, but despair, the only thing you don't have to be afraid of fear. Be afraid of despair, because despair is the deep fear that makes you quit. Okay, we're all going to have fear, overcoming fear and stepping past fear. And when you're doing the right thing, you're really not afraid. You might be nervous, you might even be a little scared, but you're not afraid because you know you're right. That what you're doing is right, not that you're being right. And there's a big difference there. But we as a nation, we as a society, Trump gets up in Poland and defends the West. He's right to defend the West. Now, he calls it the West because that's where it happened, where it started. And I say happened to have started, but I mean, that's the deal. Okay. And you can say, well, we're no better than anyone else, but we are. I mean, not as human beings, but as a society, because we are self-examining in those things, okay? This society is the best it's ever been. As I've said, it's not perfect. None was going to be. The reason we failed in our education system is we failed to evaluate how fortunate we are. That waking up in this society every day, regardless of your status, you won the lottery compared to the rest of the world. Because you have a chance to change things if you choose to do it. And you have a chance to do right, and thereby to encourage other people to do right, to help them find the best amount of individual freedom and fulfillment by the example you set of pursuing your own, and bettering the lives of people around you in your community. Not by hashtagging and attempting to better the whole world and make it perfect, but by what you do right here, right now, to help people around you. That's what these videos are about. That's what alternative media is about right now. As harsh as it can be, as critical as it can be. And yeah, there's trolls and idiots. There's no question about that. Because what have we done? We've just taken the real world and put it online. And so now we're seeing more of the real world. How we respond to that, to seeing more trolls and more idiots when we might have seen one or two in the course of our life. Because most of the time we've been surrounded by decent people, by good people who want to do the right thing. We're just trying to figure out how to do the right thing. That's what this nation is, who want to make things better by their actions, by their choices, for themselves and for those around them. That's what we are. That's what makes America great. That's what makes it the best system, and Trump's right to defend it. And it's not a battle of civilizations right now. It's a war between civilization and savagery. And when you've got Linda Sarsour calling for, saying that she hopes Muhammad will see them as a jihad against Trump administration and its policies against, these things. It's a very different thing. I mean, you're talking about, and then people making excuses for it. Look, it's two clashing worldviews. They're not compatible. One of them says, we'll tell you what's right. And if we think you're wrong, we'll throw you off a building. If you're homosexual or, if you're an adulteress in certain areas of Islamic extreme beliefs, you'll be buried to the neck and stoned to death. You're going to be stoned to death. I mean, those aren't compatible. They're not similar. They're not even close to being equal. One is savagery and one is civilization. And you have only to decide if one is better than the other. And if you can't decide that, if you can't see civilization, Western civilization, with all of its warts and all of its problems, is better and is worth defending and fighting for, then you've given in to despair. And that's the only way that we lose. Because we're in a struggle, and it sounds hyperbolic, but it's true. And we have hitherto failed, or at least recently, to do our part to educate and inspire one another and challenge, most importantly, challenge one another to pursue that greatness in our own lives instead of looking to point the finger elsewhere and blame. And we can get into in another video who's responsible for that. The forces in higher education in Hollywood, the intersectional politics that seeks to blame. That's not empowerment. It's not. You're not empowering people. You're not helping them. What you're doing is telling them that they're powerless. And we need to stop doing that. We need to start reminding people that they just need to be doing right, not being right. Yeah, but it's because the one is way more important than the other. All right. Hit like, subscribe if you're interested. Post me topics if there's something you'd like to hear about or you want me to talk about. Yeah, thanks for watching. Cheers.